Okay, let's get into this, shall we? Hey baby. Okay, hey guys. If my cats are rambunctious and or distracting and or bad during this, they're being bad right now. They decided right now is the best time. Who am I to obstruct their joy? They're playing with the ball right now. I don't know where he went, but they're probably gonna do some stuff. I guess just, hey everyone, happy to have you here, happy to be here. Please ignore any rustlings around. I have 2 little baby kittens that are decided right now is the best time to be rambunctious. So, like that. If you hear some of that, that's them. Sorry. But they're very sweet and cute, and I'm not gonna kill their joy. Why would I do that? My name's Kaya, and this is the first video on my YouTube channel. And I don't really exactly know what my YouTube channel is gonna end up being. I don't really know if it's gonna go anywhere. I don't really know anything. I don't really know some things. Happy that you've stumbled across me here and hope you stick around. Maybe just some background noise. That's what I use most YouTube videos for, is just background noise while I'm doing other stuff. I would love to be some of your background noise. Maybe I'll say something that piques your interest or say something that you think sounds really dumb and then you can correct me in the comments. I want this space to be collaborative, community focused. I want us to be able to learn here. I will start all of this, whatever this is, I will start it all off by saying I am no expert in anything. Oh, by the way, hey, my name's Kaya. I'm 25 years old. Recently quit my job as a civil engineer because I hated that shit. It sucked. I'm done with that, don't really know what my next steps are. The next few months of my life are a complete mystery. Since I am 25 years old, this seems probably like one of the last times I can do something like that on paper. I know that like time is an illusion, which is what we're gonna get into today. It's never too late to do anything in your life. I recently quit my job. Don't know what the next few months of my life is gonna look like. This whole thing is not coming from a place of ignorance to the realities of our present society and economy. I love you so much, please stop it. Because what's fulfilling to me as an individual is community. All that to say, I want this to be a place where we can build community. I think having people that you are able to go to for things that maybe you haven't figured out all the way. Social media, I think, could have been something very beautiful that connects us and gives, again, community to people who may not be able to find it in their physical surroundings as easily. I know it functions in a much more sinister way than that many a time, most of the time. But here on this here YouTube channel, where if you found me, hey, nice to see ya again. On this here YouTube channel, I want it to be a space where we can maybe learn things, and we can maybe dare to not already know everything. I most certainly, again, do not know everything. I know very little in comparison to what is possible to be known. I am open to new information and perspectives, and I want this to be a place where maybe I can field some of those. Maybe you'll think differently about something from me. Again, there are certain things that I will never change my perspective on, be that politically, socially, and just in regards to everybody on the planet having human rights. Okay? We're gonna get into that a little bit too. Mind any nasally stuff going on. I'm a little sick, okay? I'm a little sick, I'm at home. We're gonna talk about time today. I have had a lot of it lately. That's not to say I don't want to do anything and I'm not willing to work also, like as some clarifiers. I'm lucky enough to have some support systems. I have saved enough to have a little bit of a safety net right now while I figure out what's next for me. If you hear cars, I live right next to a busy road, and I'm sorry, I haven't figured out the fancy audio stuff or anything like that yet. But we're all here, we're here, right? And we can just do some chit-chatting. And what I wanted my first video to be about was time, because I've observed over the past couple weeks when I have had more time to myself, because the reason that I needed to make this change is because I was so unhappy in my career, so unfulfilled in the work that I was doing, so uninspired that I couldn't Like, I didn't want to be investing any energy into that, and I did everything I could to take my energy back from it, but I still like wasn't able to enjoy the other aspects of my life, you know? And that's not worth the sacrifice to me. Making art, learning new skills, being in spaces where I meet new people and things like that, and I wasn't able to fully be present during any of those things or even get myself to do them in the first place while I was still at this job, because I would be so drained at the end of the day just from continuing to invest time, keyword of the video, continuing to invest time into something that I, hey, not in the blinds, please, anywhere else, come here, come say hi. Oh, god damn, these are big as hell. Don't look at my pajama shorts. These are huge. I don't think I've ever taken a Mucinex before. I've been congested, y'all. I'm pretty good at taking like tablets and pills, but damn! Big as hell, I wasn't expecting that. Yuck. I don't know how YouTube works, but this Mucinex, I'm a little congested, okay? Back to the matter at hand. I don't know if the lighting changed or anything, sorry. I'm back though. Like, the moment that I put in my 2-week notice and was like, I'm done doing this, and I made a promise to myself that I would not end up back in the same role. In order to remove myself from the corporate situation and like return home to me internally as Kaya the person, I can't do it anymore. So I have a little part-time job in a coffee cart for now, and I'm gonna look at more things like that, kind of like odd job service. And again, this is not to say that any of this is easier. I've worked in food service before. I understand that in many ways is much more difficult than the corporate job that I was working. It's a different kind of tiring, and I personally in this house that is me, Kaya, am more willing to do the face-to-face, on your feet type of frustrating work than I am that. I took some time not to think about any of this, like any of the implications. I, since quitting my job, have sold my first painting, gone to my first live painting class where I sold my first painting, read my first poem aloud, done my first poetry reading. I have gone to a bunch more community events. I have spent more intentional time with my partner. I have spent more intentional time with my cats. I've been bonding with them more. Like, it's been an understanding myself, which has been the most profound change, I think. I've been on a very intentional journey of understanding myself better for the past few years, because I went to Arizona State University, and I had my COVID year during college, and I was so out of touch with myself. Like, I felt so unaligned. I've made a lot of progress in these years. Let me make sure we're recording again. Guys, the setup's janky. What can I say? I've made a lot of strides in recent years, in terms of just healing and making sure that I am showing up in the world as the person that I want to be and am meant to be, and who I actually am and feel like. That took a lot of going back. It took a lot of discomfort. It took a lot of feeling lonely. It took a lot of wanting to be alone and feeling overwhelmed by people who loved me, wanting to take care of me and letting them do that anyway. It took a lot of things, but the biggest leap that I have taken has definitely been my resolution not to end up back in engineering, because I actually did this a year ago and some change, a year and a few months ago. Quit my job, was like, I hate engineering, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I was depressed for a few months and ran out of money, so had to be an engineer again. This time I took a little bit of time just to relax, making sure I prevent that situation. I'm also medicated again this time, so shout out to my Wellbutrin. Shout out to my Wellbutrin girlies. Rise up. That thing is magic to me. I know everyone's experience with that kind of stuff is different, but that thing is magic to me. These past 2 weeks, just reconnecting with myself and my loved ones and my community and my space, and with time, which we will get into soon. I swear we will. It's been so freeing to let go of just all of that. I had usually pretty self-imposed and also just like generally societally imposed, because the implications are always I had this thing in my brain that was like, no matter how badly I'm doing, like mentally, or feel like I'm out of touch with what I want to be doing or how I want to be spending my time or what I want to feel like or who I want to be, no matter what, at least when people ask what I do as a 20-something-year-old who has nothing figured out, at least when people ask what I do, I can say I'm an engineer. And that's why I kept doing it. But I didn't even feel good when I said it. I'd be like, I'm an engineer. It meant nothing to me because I hated it and I didn't care and I didn't want to do it. I wasn't interested. And also with engineering, I was civil. They don't tell you that most of your job options are working for evil people. They don't tell you that. I'm in my brain studying civil engineering being like, this is super boring and I don't care to keep spending my time doing it. Like, I'm not interested in this, but at least maybe I can use this skill to give people clean water or like improve the infrastructure of the US of A, which maybe I'll do a video on that sometime because it's bad. But no, actually. They're like, you learn to do all the math so that you can make all the super, super rich people even more money. Right. Because I knew, but like, you know, you gotta get there to know. You gotta get there to learn and be like, damn, everything on here is a data center. Everything on LinkedIn, you're gonna build a data center. You join a company and they're like, you're gonna build restaurants, and then they're like, you're gonna build a data center. And I'm like, never mind. I needed to be free of that label. Like, I was clinging on to this thing. And I think it started in college because, again, I was doing so poorly just in my internal. In this house was falling apart. Oh, Anna son. Whoa. Anyway, here in this space, we were not doing well in college. I think that's kind of what college is. It just happens, but we were just not doing well. I clung so hard to I'm going to be an engineer, and that is like on paper means that I was able to do this difficult thing while struggling so hard, like internally. That means I must like be good, I guess. All of this is not relevant to what I'm going to talk about today. Completely is relevant to me and why I want to talk about it, but like, you don't know me, so who cares? Long story short, I have been in the practice of detachment and letting things go right now, and it's been so freeing, and the more you do it, the easier it gets, and every time you're like, this is something that I have been like, I've white knuckle gripped onto this thing about me or about life or this idea that I've had about something or this experience or this memory or this thing, this trauma, this whatever. It's something that happened to me. I've been clinging so hard to it for so long, and then once you get into the practice of just detaching from everything, it's so surprising how easy it is to let go of that thing that you're almost like, am I crazy? Listen, let's get into time, shall we? That's what this whole video is about. Time is, as I have thought about it. Again, I am no expert. I am no physicist. I'm not like Hank Green. I don't know about this shit, right? I don't know about this shit on like a scientific level. So all of this is like purely like philosophical. This is not meant to be any sort of like dissertation on this. This is just thoughts that I have had and understandings that I have gained through my experiences that I want to discuss. And if you guys have different ideas, I would love to hear them. I like to think about these things. I like to talk about these things. I want to create a community space where maybe I said something that you're like, but have you considered it like this? And you can tell me that, and I would like to know. We're allowed to learn things here. That's what I would like. We're allowed to disagree, except when it comes to who does and does not deserve to live a full human life. Okay, moving forward. One of the biggest observations I've had about time over this period in which I've been able to just reflect on everything because I finally have the brain space cleared. I scrubbed it clean of all of that other bullshit that was going on. And I have gathered that time is just your perception of an experience. Time is just the degree to which you as an individual, me as an individual, someone is present or relative to an experience, right? So, and it sounds like I'm just saying some bullshit. Maybe I am. Background noise. I'll be background noise for you guys. something that has led me to that conclusion where your understanding of time and how time feels is just the degree to which you are present in a moment or throughout an experience is like flashbulb memories. And flashbulb memories, that's like a high school psych class term. And also I know psych classes can be questionable and disproven often. So if any of this is incorrect, please update me in the comments. But flashbulb memories, to my understanding, are specific moments throughout your life that have, like, there was like a before and after. Like a flashbulb memory is something you remember so clearly in your head, like you can place yourself back there when you recall it. And the human memory is fundamentally flawed. Every time you remember something, you are remembering the last time you remembered it, not remembering the event itself. So things change and shift and things like that. But flashbulb memories are essentially moments in your life that you remember so clearly. Big plot points in your life. To me, flashbulb memories lend themselves to time being interpreted as your degree of presence in a moment, especially as an adult. I know a lot of your flashbulb memories happen like early in your life, in childhood and things like that, because you don't remember all of it, so the things you do remember feel very important. I guess to me, and I don't know if this is like a universal feeling, when something is happening that I know is going to impact me deeply or is very significant to me in some sort of internal world, time does seem to slow down. It feels slower when things like that are happening because you're taking these things in. You feel more alive in those moments, I guess, because you know that there is going to be an impact in your life. Whereas I think, especially in modern society, with the level of distractions that we have and societal pressures to be XYZ, a lot of people have just so much going on in their internal world all the time that you can be in a place doing a thing and completely somewhere else. Just so somewhere else. Your consciousness and your presence is somewhere, maybe your goals in the future, maybe thinking about what you're gonna post about this on social media, maybe thinking about your situationship that is going poorly and what they're thinking. It's like your presence in a moment is most of the time, I think, in modern day, so, and this is also a privileged position to be in, if you're able to not be always constantly thinking about your immediate survival. That is a place of privilege because we have a lot of human beings in the world who are currently and every day, their only thing that they are able to think about is feeding themselves, getting water, staying safe, surviving. So I understand this is a privileged take. The amount of presence that you have in a moment during those flashbulb memories, during those points where maybe if you are someone like me who is often wrapped up in some other place in your brain, when you're having those moments where you're brought back to this present like reality and understanding that something that is happening right now before your eyes, your physical body is in this situation, your physical self, your mental self is here right now, you're going to take this with you, time slows down, and that's why you remember them so clearly, because you're more present in that scenario. It's kind of like a hand in hand. Does the time slow down because you're more present? Does the time slow down because you're more present, or does you being more present make time feel slower? I don't have a lot of like answers or conclusions to any of these questions, by the way. I'm just chatting here. I'm just talking bullshit right now. And I also think time being sort of a function of your presence, the amount by which the degree of you that is active in any given moment. I think something else that lends itself to that idea is, at least for me, I can define my life in like iterations of myself. There are gray areas in between. Being a hot mess in college and then spending the next few years up until now just focusing on trying to understand myself as an adult now and taking a step beyond that and what's next for me and wanting to develop internally. I can even define my college years not based off of like semesters or things like that, but just what emotions or what situations were dominating my consciousness during that time. Again, situationships. I was in a sorority drama, family stuff, me needing to be on medication and eventually losing my mind. Periods of time where I was very reliant on some particular dried plant substances that you would roll up into a piece of paper and perhaps, okay, this sounds really sus. My stoner era, you know, like those things in my life, I being able to define, or even like in high school, going back that far, being like, I don't remember I have a bad memory, again, stoner era, but I don't remember a lot of particular events from high school or how the day-to-day really felt like, but I do know like the overarching domineering qualities of my life at that time. Maybe I was feeling inadequate in some way. I played a lot of sports. I spent a lot of time and energy investing into my physical performance. My body has been a big overarching theme, how I felt about my body at certain parts of my life. I can remember my life in stages like that, rather than this is when I was doing this every single day, or this is what the days felt like, you know? And I don't know if also none of this is like a unique observation, I'm sure. None of this, I'm sure, is groundbreaking material. I'm just chatting here. I'm just chatting. I'm just riffing. So with periods of your life, rather than being defined by, or I guess what I'm trying to say is when I look back, or when I'm talking to someone that maybe I spent a lot of time with during that period of my life, I can think back to maybe not exact moments with those people, or maybe not exact moments from those years, but I can return immediately to how I felt at that time. And that's something that's very easy for me to recall, and I think that's because that's where my presence was placed in that time in my life. I wasn't present in moments. I was very much not present in class, and I wasn't, sitting at sorority chapter being like, let me be very invested in, I was in charge too, so this is maybe not the best thing to say, but I wasn't sitting at sorority chapter being like, I'm clinging on to every single, event that we have coming up this week, and every thing that we're doing or accomplishing or whatever. I love you. Please stop doing that. I was thinking about, again, situationship. I was thinking about, they're gonna find out I'm crazy. That was a big one. Just all sorts of things. How am I gonna be skinnier, etc., etc. I, again, have since grown to release a lot of those very unhealthy, toxic thought patterns. Like, what are you doing? Excuse me. Whatever. I'm glad you're healthy and running around. The little guy had FIP, or he has FIP. He's an FIP cat, but he's off his meds now, so he's doing better. But now he's bad, but I'm grateful that he's bad because it means he's healthy. But yes, I think time, conceptually, moving at a pace that is a function of how present you are at that time, because college flew by. This is wisdom that you gain as you just age, and I may be unk to some of you, and I may be just a little idiot baby child to other adults. But to me, I feel like I'm in a point in my life where when I'm 30, I'm gonna look back at me now and be like, yeah, girl, okay. But now I'm 25, looking back at 21-year-old me and being like, man, I wish I could just like help you. But right now I'm in a stage where I'm like, she's trying her best, I think 30-year-old me would be like, she was doing what she could, and 21-year-old me was too. But yeah, wisdom is a very funny thing to find yourself gaining throughout life. It makes you laugh at yourself a lot. And also detaching from your self-perception. I mean, don't detach all the way from your self-perception. You should still strive to be a good person, believe in yourself and things like that. But, the voices, the implications. Oh, yes. Time as a function of your presence, kind of. I think those days where you have really busy schedules that are filled with things that are monotonous and that you don't want to do, those days feel shorter. When you're at work, and you're like, shit, it's very busy right now, but honestly, like, when it's really busy, the shift goes by faster because you're just occupied with everything that's going on. Those days feel shorter, even though you have a lot more experience happening. Days that are busy with things that you do want to do, days that are busy with spontaneous things, maybe days that are busy with, I'm hanging out with my friend and we don't really have a plan, but we're going to see where the day takes us, and you are just enjoying those moments in your life. Those days feel longer because you are allowing yourself to be present in those moments. When you're on that autopilot with a busy work day, that day feels shorter because you're not watching the time as much. Your presence in the moment is not focusing on the clock, it's focusing on the task at hand. Your presence in the moments where you're having a great day with people you love, enjoying your time, keeping yourself busy throughout a day that is things that you do want to do, those days feel longer than the busy days that are filled with things that you don't want to do, because you're allowing yourself to be present in each of those moments. You're still not looking at the clock. And the longest days are the days that are like slow moving at work, because your presence and your intention and your attention is on the clock. So when your focus is on time, then the time is going to move slower. When your focus is on taking in an experience, your day's gonna move a little bit faster than that, but not much. And when your focus is on getting things done, the time is going to move faster. Yes. The next observation I've made about time in these few weeks of having a lot of it, just kind of the human condition, which again, I know none of this is like unique thought. I know kind of everybody's thinking about the human condition all the time, or in some version of it is impacting their life at any given time. Excuse me. But living as a dying thing, what is one to do then? Like if you're given, I think it's an Adventure Time clip. I'll put it here if I can figure out how to do that. Let me look it up actually though. If the greatest act of creation is just being born, then kind of like what's the point of all the rest of it? Let me find it. Let's hear it.
Well, if just being born is the greatest act of creation, then what are you supposed to do after that? Isn't everything that comes next sort of a disappointment? Slowly entropying until we deflate into a pile of mush?
Excuse me, Mommy's listening to philosophy from a children's cartoon. Thank you. Okay. Yes. So if just being born is the greatest act of creation, isn't everything else after that just kind of like a disappointment? How do you live as a dying thing? How do you find it within yourself to utilize this X amount of time that you have, and allow yourself to be fully present in it? Because to live fully and to find things that fulfill you and to find things that you love and that you care about and that you're passionate about as a dying thing, that we all are. We're all a dying thing. From the moment we're born, we're dying. How do you then motivate yourself to fill the time that you do have with something that seems, I don't know, worthwhile to you? And that's something that I think I've really struggled with my whole, like ever since I was a kid, and medicated now and probably should have been for most of my life. But I always really struggled with like, what is the point of all of this? Like, I would be stressed about the high school sports, and then you look at the state of the world and you're like, there are horrible things happening. I'm worried about this, but I'll also like on a much higher level worried about this, and like I don't really have control over this situation. I don't feel like I have control over this situation, so it's like all of this just seems like you're born and then it's all stress and then you die. Which it kind of is, in a way. But it's also love. And I'm going to make a video called On Love soon, because ultimately all of this, the whole point of everything is love. And we will get into that another day. Yeah, living as something that is dying is a difficult choice to make. Again, a privileged choice to make, because when you're in a situation where you are not concerning yourself with whether or not this is worth it, where you're not concerning yourself with thinking of philosophy or thinking of your place in the world, when the looming threat in your life isn't whether you're spending your time correctly, when the looming threat in your life is whether you will continue to have time or that your loved ones will continue to have time. It's a privileged place to be in, to even be thinking about these questions. Again, I can't overstate how much being in this position, especially in this current climate that we're in, is a place of privilege relative to many other people. I'm, again, clearly not in the highest level of privilege, but I can understand that being in this point in my life is something that many people would be very grateful for, and I am as well. So, what do you do with life as a dying thing? You can accept it. You can accept that you have some undisclosed amount of time to yourself and try and fill all of that time with as much as you can. And making the most of that time just requires being as present as you possibly can. And that's gonna require the acceptance that this is temporary. Welcoming things into your life that you care about and that fulfill you demands that you accept the loss of that thing. And that can be sad. That can be sad, and it can be really overwhelming, but it can also be very beautiful. When you accept that you are experiencing life as a dying thing, you're temporarily experiencing life through a very specific lens, and that is, you are the only one who will ever experience life through this lens that you have. The things that you love and how you care about them and how important they are to you, all of that is just something that you as an individual will be the only person to ever fully feel what you feel and understand yourself in that way. And that can be really scary, but it can also just mean that you were given a really great opportunity to become whatever you are to become. And you're the only one who can do that. And the only way to do that is to accept all of this, detached from yourself in a way that allows you to experience life to the fullest. Because when you are too attached to yourself and you're too scared of death, perhaps, if you're too scared of and the fear of death, maybe that'll be another video sometime. The fear of death, it is, I mean, of course it's scary. Nobody knows what happens after death, and I don't know what happens after death. The fear of death doesn't get you anything. No. The fear of death, and it manifests in so many different ways. The fear of death can manifest in living vicariously through your children. It can manifest in never being fully open to real human connection. It can manifest in putting yourself in positions of power, in enacting violence against other people because you're lashing out that you are, without a doubt, going to die one day. We're all going to, okay? And that's okay. It's okay. Would you want to live in this lens of life forever? I wouldn't. And I have grown to like myself quite a bit over the years. And I still wouldn't want to be this forever, I just think that accepting that you are a dying thing is very freeing in many ways and lets you be open to much more. And in some ways, it can manifest in a very, very opposite way to the examples that I gave, where you then feel selfish to let those things into your life. Maybe feel selfish to be connected to other people because you know that you are a dying thing and they are as well. That sort of pain into your life, knowing that all of those things are temporary, can feel self-serving. We're all in the same boat. You deserve just as much as anybody else to live a fulfilling life and to be able to feel comfortable to be present in as many moments in your life as possible. All of this just requires that you accept, sorry, the Mucinex started working, I think. Fullness of life demands that you accept loss of life. That is not to be stretched or implied to any sort of senseless losses of life, acts of violence, etc., etc. None of that is ever accepted or tolerated here. We'll get into death in another video. But you as an individual are life experiencing itself. The amount of time that you have is fundamentally limited, of course, but the fullness of that time and how long that time feels is dependent on the amount of presence you are willing to supply, the amount of yourself you are willing to put into any given moment is going to be what the fullness of your life is derived from. There's a word that I learned recently on my vocabulary app called Meraki, I think, and it's putting a piece of your soul into something. I think it's a Greek word. Doing things as you, putting some of yourself into anything that you do. And I think that that is the most beautiful thing that you can do with your time, because you are life experiencing itself through a very specific lens, right? And you, again, are the only person who's ever going to look at life through this lens. With your exact lens, you are the only one who can do that. I believe that all life is connected. I believe that every form of life is life experiencing itself through some sort of specific lens, whether it be person to person. I think that's the easiest example of it. It's like you're not everybody and everybody's not you, but also in a different way, like you are everybody and everybody is you. We all could have turned out in a very, very big multitude of ways. We all could have turned out very differently if our lenses were slightly morphed in some way. And that's how we have different people with different personalities. And you're also death experiencing itself. You, whatever you is, because you're not like your thoughts, you're not your ego, you're something that I feel like for visual's sake, you're something that's like floating above. You are like a concept, perhaps a soul, if that's what you want to say, perhaps a spirit. I was not raised in any sort of religious context. I've been learning more about spirituality. I believe that anything spiritual is anything spiritual. Excuse me, Mr. Bad. Leave your sister alone. I believe spirituality is a very individual journey to go on, as someone who was not raised with any sort of like organized religion at all, or any sort of spiritual anything really. I've been understanding that. Stop being Mr. Bad. Oh my god, I have to interrupt them. I'm sorry, I will be back. The lighting might change. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, with you being life and death experiencing each other and themselves through a very particular lens that is you, whatever you are, I think the only thing that's left to do with all of that information, again, the human condition, nobody knows the answer to this. This is kind of like the whole thing, right? Again, none of this is unique thought. It's just, this is kind of like the whole thing. With you being life and death experiencing each other through you, whatever you is, whatever this is, that is you, that is me, that is you, that is that other person over there. I guess the only thing that's left to do is find out then, huh? And I think okay. The only thing that's left to do is find out. We're not gonna know the answer, so the only thing that you can do is do yourself justice. Do the you that is here somewhere justice. In the time that you do have experiencing the life through this lens, experiencing death through this lens, you know, like we don't know the answer, so I guess you gotta find out. And that brings me into my next point, which is choosing to live, surrendering to the absurd. I read a book, The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. I am a big philosophy girly. A lot of discussion about absurdity that's kind of like the through line of the book, is how absurd being alive and being a human being or being just a life form is. Because we don't have the answer to all of those questions previously stated, because we don't know, because the human condition is what it is. So being put in this situation at all is just so completely absurd, because it's like, what do you mean there was nothing? First of all, nothing? What the fuck does that mean? There was nothing. And then the Big Bang, and then now there's the universe. That shit never made sense to me. I don't care. Listen, if you're an astrophysicist or something, I don't know. I don't understand. I know I understand, but I don't at all, because how was there nothing and then there was the Big Bang? I don't know. I don't get it. And then there's gotta be the God people, and that's fine that you have that. I don't know. I know belief is also annoying, so I can't whatever. Nobody knows the answer. And if you have beliefs that make you believe that you do know the answer, that's great. I don't have them. So when you are living and dying at the same time, when you are living as a dying thing, to choose to live within that fullness, to be intentional and present within your allotted time, is to just surrender completely and accept that this is absurd. Because again, what do you mean there was nothing and then there was the Big Bang and then a bunch of shit happened for such a long time, and then, excuse me, mommy's talking about time in philosophy. Okay? Please sit down. You're bad. All of that happened. A bunch of other shit happened. There were dinosaurs. The universe is expanding forever? Huh? And then also you are here. What are the odds of that? It's like so much shit is happening all the time, and then it's like, also I'm here. By the way, also I'm here, by the way. And the scale of your own life in comparison to all of the other shit that's going on is so, it's just absurd that this is your experience, but it's also like, well, this is your experience, so get into it. You're the only one who can. And it seems you can take that smallness and it can make you feel afraid, and it can make you feel like things are meaningless, but it can also make you feel like, oh, there's gotta be something to this, right? Because why would it be necessary for me, you, this lens to be? And we don't know, and the only thing you can do is find out, and you can find out in the best way by using your time to listen to yourself, by using the allotted time that you have to observe yourself as well. Everything is just a mirror of each other. You're a mirror to yourself too. When you observe yourself in the lens that you're looking through as an objective, like third party, and again, when you detach to that concept of self that you have, or detach from the self that you want to be, or the self that seems like the best path forward, the self that your parents wanted you to be, the self that would fit the best into your friend group, the self that ends up on a magazine cover or something like that. When you're able to detach from that version of yourself and just observe you, this you, I don't know a better way to explain it, but I feel like maybe you probably get what I'm talking about. Then you're able to follow what that version of you wants to do with this allotted amount of time that you have, what that life is meant to be. This is life observing itself. When you observe you, when you observe you and what life is calling toward it through your lens, and detach from what the shoulds and the should nots and the what's scary and et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is all coming from a place of the privilege of having these thoughts and not being worried about like where I'm gonna get my next meal and things like that. When you allow yourself to do that, and this is all circling back to what got us to this thought process, it was me leaving my job and having time to just reconnect with myself. When you detach from all of that, when you're able to pull yourself away from your ego, observe yourself, observe life through the lens of yourself, that's when you can align with what is going to be, I guess, the most fulfilling to you. To me, I was spending most of my time wanting to die in a corporate setting, and it was just so out of alignment with myself that I couldn't. It was a defense mechanism, I suppose, for my brain or for my attention, my intention, my presence to be directed to some sort of fantasy of getting out of it, right? To some sort of way out, to some sort of abstract future that would free me from that place that I was in. And I know that's not a unique thought either. I know so many people just want to be free of the patterns that they have been forced into in order to provide financial support, in order to provide for their children, in order to provide for their parents, to provide for themselves. I'm definitely not free from that circumstance, but I've been able to grant myself a little bit of time, and hopefully I'm able to do something with that time. And that detachment that I've been able to experience and the freeing feeling of letting things go in that way has also very much come with me observing what I would want to do without any sort of like judgment or fear. Because when you really zoom out, it's like we have not, like as a society, collectively as human beings, been here for very long, right? Like it feels like a really long time. It hasn't been a very long time. Was it like 7% of all of the people who have ever been alive are alive right now? That's a lot. That's a big percent, right? Who have ever been alive are alive right now. That's crazy. It might be more now. I don't know. I learned that stat from a Good Mythical Morning episode. So, could be more. It's probably more. When you are choosing to live and surrendering to the absurdity of all of this, it becomes very clear that like the external pressures of I have to be an engineer because people are gonna think I'm successful even though I'm unhappy. What if I work for until I'm 70 years old, then I'll be able to have a good life, but also like who knows who's gonna, the amount of stress that you're putting on your body by doing something that you're not aligned with for 50 years, for 60 years, could not even get you to that point or being able to fully enjoy retired life. I don't believe that anyone should have to do that. I don't believe that that's how the system should work. Again, this is not a unique thought. If those are not my beliefs, if that system is not aligned with how I believe life should be lived, and again, I understand that the powers that be very much dictate who is and is not able to make this type of choice or even have this type of thought enter their brain. If there was nothing and then the Big Bang happened and then somehow, some way, after so many years, I am here in this particular set of scenarios and this is the lens through which I, me, as whatever thing you are that gets to observe life is here, then putting pressure on yourself to be something that doesn't bring you some sort of fulfillment is meaningless. As soon as you zoom out to that degree, I didn't give a fuck about being an engineer. I still don't. Hello. When you take a step back and you allow yourself to be like just the slightest bit vulnerable, because again, who is anybody to say how anything should or should not work besides yourself for yourself? And who are you to say how things should or should not work for other people? This is not me telling you how to live your life by any means. We're up here right now. We'll get more into the weeds of all of these things, but right now we're at the highest, the most abstract point of this. This life that you are living, the understanding of this life, the understanding of life through this lens is only ever going to be accessible to you in this moment. No one else is ever going to know. I was sitting at that desk and I was like, no one's ever going to know how profoundly no one else is ever going to feel how profoundly wrong this feels to me. And it's then on me to act upon that and to remove myself from that situation and to be present in my time to a degree that allows me to make those changes. And it's uncomfortable at first. I had the month leading up to me quitting my job was a hot mess. I was not my best self. I was very uncomfortable. I cried a lot. I'm not a big crier, so that was a lot. I had a lot of very difficult conversations, and that was because I had gotten to a point where I could no longer send my brain and my intention and my presence off to some other plane, some other thing off in the future. It got uncomfortable to a point where I was like, this has to be now, because my attention has been forced back into this moment because I'm so uncomfortable with the situation that I've been in. It's so unaligned with, from a me observing me standpoint, it is so clearly just not what I want to do. And it can feel like a really juvenile thought, like not wanting to do things that you don't want to do. And of course, sometimes you're gonna have to do things you don't want to do, That's part of being alive. Pick your friends up from the airport, do the laundry, help people out with chores, etc. That's part of life. But when you are spending so much of your time doing something that is so unaligned with you the way that I was, it will get to a point where that was difficult. Making the choice to leave was difficult. Not knowing what I'm gonna be up to in a month's time, not having a current reliable source of income is stressful. It's difficult, but that is the difficult that I would choose rather than the difficulty of forcing myself to stay in something that wasn't aligned with me. And that's all just a function of time and presence. What the version of your life and the version of you is capable of negotiating, what you are willing to sacrifice in order to gain another thing. To me, I'm definitely not swimming in it. I was still living paycheck to paycheck, but it was a bigger paycheck than I'll get not doing engineering. The sacrifice of enjoyment of my social interactions and engaging with my community and making art, that sacrifice is not worth it to me for financial gain. I would rather, if I'm observing me objectively and removing any worries from my parents, or societally looking like a burnout, or embarrassing myself, the fear of being seen, my friends who are all very successful thinking that I'm a fuck up, like anything like that. All of that difficulty is much more tolerable to me than spending my time doing something that I didn't feel fulfilled doing. Again, not a unique situation, but that's what's gotten me to all of this thinking about time. You're the only person who's ever going to live this life. You're the only person who's ever going to experience life as you are. When you detach from and accept all of that all at the same time, then you kind of naturally end at the point where it's like, well then, shit, I should just do what makes me happy then. The negative self-talk and the I can't and the I don't deserve it, etc., just kind of falls away when you accept the absolute ridiculous circumstances under which you are here living this life. Like, there was nothing and then there was the Big Bang and now I'm talking to a phone. What? I don't even know what this is gonna be. This is not all to say, like, I do hope. I'm allowing myself to be a little bit more honest in those regards too. I do hope that I'm able to build a community here and sustain a livelihood in some capacity doing this, because this is very interesting to me and I love connecting with people in this kind of way. But even this, being able to sit in front of this camera and have like just one sheet of notes and just talk without everything being perfect and without, you know, whatever, having a launch campaign or something that the social media people do, without having everything figured out, with having a jank setup and all of that, like, it took a lot of detaching from the result of posting these videos that I want to post to even get to this point. But again, all of this is so ridiculous. None of this shit makes any sense. None of this shit makes any sense, so you might as well take the time that you do have, detach from expectations of yourself beyond I believe the sole expectations you should have for yourself and others is to be a kind and considerate person. That's all. As long as you're not hurting anyone and as long as nobody's hurting you, then I think we can all just go after the things that we want. And that would make the world the best place that it possibly could be. Of course, that is not how our current society functions at all. But, you know, in theory, again, not a unique thought, but that's how it should work. You, as this being, as this life and death experiencing itself through this very particular set of circumstances, that what are the odds that that shit happened? You know? The only thing for you to do is just to become whatever you're guided to become, whatever makes you feel the best, whatever makes you feel the most fulfilled, whatever brings you the most joy and happiness, whatever makes you feel the most you. And again, you're the only person who can feel what being you feels like. So whatever aligns you most with that. The human condition is tough and the fear of death can be easy to come by, but really all that there is to do is to just find out. And try your best, you know? Maybe dance a little bit along the way. That's pretty fun. I think another thing that it's important to remember, and something that I've been reminding myself throughout this time of figuring out what's next for me, has been detachment from that truth, like understanding, like, no one's gonna lay out a yellow brick road for me and be like, this is your path to fulfillment, you know? That's really gonna take a lot of just listening to yourself and trial and error, and that's not to say that your channel to yourself is always going to be 100% clear of any debris, because we are imperfect people. There's been plenty of times in my life where I've been like, this is what's right for me, I know it in my soul, and then now, years later, I'll look back on it and be like, girl, what the hell were you doing? And it's like, but I know how real that felt in that time, you know? Time. Within yourself and within this life that you're experiencing, you're both the observer of life through your own lens. Like, you are looking through the lens, but you are also able to look at the lens itself. We are in a very unique and very cool situation by being alive, so it's like we might as well do a little canoodling with us and see if we can make something shake, I guess. And also, just to circle back a little bit to this point of time and privilege, in an ideal world, of course, everybody would be, as we have written, at least the US of A, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all people. I know that is not how the country was founded, even though it's written down somewhere. I should know what that's on. Is that the Declaration of Independence? Uh-oh. Who cares? They didn't even mean that shit. I mean it though. I know, this is something that I do know. In an ideal society, every individual would be granted the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In reality, in this current society, that is a privilege. Again, there are so many people who are not able to even consider, to think of their pursuit of happiness. Their pursuit of happiness at this point is surviving the day, is not succumbing to starvation, is finding clean water, is taking care of other people in the same survival mode scenario that is being imposed on them by other human beings, questionably human beings, because I don't know if I would qualify people who are willing to do that as human beings, honestly. I don't believe this is the opinion of the people at large, but the powers that be have diluted society, or at least beaten down society into thinking that some of these things are necessary sacrifices in order for progress to occur, in which case I very strongly disagree. I just don't believe that that's what we're meant to be doing. We were given the prefrontal cortex and a beautiful, beautiful planet to live on, and I believe that if we created circumstances in which everyone had their basic needs met, which we absolutely could if people were willing to do that, where everyone had food, shelter, community, water, naturally human society would progress much faster, because we, as individuals with, I think the definition of personhood is to have passions and motivations and ambitions, and when you can rely on those for fuel and you're not dependent on denying yourself of those things in order to stay alive, which is death in a different form, when you deny yourself those things, or when you are denied those things, not denying yourself necessarily. When you're denied those things, that's death in a different form. If each of us were able to pursue what called to us, then naturally, and each of us was willing to learn from each other as well, then naturally we would progress much faster. The collective quality of life would improve, and I just want to make sure that my stance on that is known. I think everybody has something to contribute to this world. Everybody should have their basic needs met and more, because that's what innovation is for, is to improve the quality of life for everybody, right? And I just want to touch on that because I understand that these thoughts about time and how you should be spending it and aligning with what calls to you and things like that are all, again, coming from a very privileged place of being able to even take the time to think of those things. So I don't want that to be lost in translation here. I also think that does create, for those of us, again, me, I'm not necessarily in the most privileged of positions, but I'm not in the least privileged of positions. I have a degree of privilege over darker skinned Black women, even though I am also a Black woman, you know, I'm a lesbian. That the implications of that on me are different than the implications of being a gay man on gay men, of being trans on trans people. Those of us who do have basic needs met, those of us who are in a position where we can lend some of our time and energy to what those of us who are in a position where our basic needs are met and we are able to lend some of our time and energy into what our next steps are going to be, or what we should be doing, or how we want to show up in the world, kind of have a responsibility to do that, I think, in the best way that you can. Again, as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you're not causing damage to others, you know, you kind of have a responsibility to develop your life, because again, you're the only person who's ever going to experience life through this lens. You have something to contribute. Without you diving into yourself, without you fulfilling your time with as much intention and presence as possible, we collectively are missing something. Had you freed yourself from the binds that are imposed by, again, the powers that be, because who the fuck are those guys, right? In not a placing blame type of way or in a disappointment kind of way or anything like that, but I do believe that we have a responsibility to become what we are to become. The depth to which you understand what you are becoming and what you are meant to become is dependent on your presence in your time. Oh, man. So what's the point of any of this? What am I even talking about? What's the point of any of this, right? Maybe there isn't one. In which case, why not just do it anyway, right? Because we have this opportunity. And if all of this is just some weird, strange coincidence and you literally your soul snuck onto Earth and this is somehow, some way you ended up here and none of this means jack shit to anybody or anything and there's no higher powers or whatever, it's all just a bunch of atoms and who knows and we'll never know, then why not use your time listening to yourself and becoming what you want and living as fulfilling of a life as you can anyway? If there is no point at all to any of this and nothing makes sense and there's no karmic justice to be served, there's no universal power that's going to reward you or punish you for being a good or bad person, then why not just live your life with as much love as possible? Being a bad person doesn't really get you anything, you know. I know that perhaps the powers that be will convince you otherwise, but the people who live their life devoid of human connection and community and care and consideration for other people are wasting their time in the biggest way possible. So there's really no sense in doing that. So if nothing at all is the point, why not like sing and dance and make art and follow your dreams and sing? I already said sing. Make friends, love people, kiss people, hug people, call your mom, call your dad, call your siblings, you know, drink nice, good water if you've got the access to that, eat nice, fresh foods if you've got the access to that, enjoy things, savor things, slow down, be present in your time. Because if nothing at all is the point, and you're living life as a dying thing, with nothing at the beginning or end of it, if you snuck your way onto Earth, then make it mean something to you. If nothing is the point at all, then you can make it mean something to you. And that is beautiful. And all that takes is you being willing to detach from the expectation of anything, including yourself, and accept that this is an absolutely absurd scenario that we're in. Observe yourself with love as well. Observe yourself as a living thing that is just trying their best, because we all are. And if there is a really big point, give yourself some grace, because no one's given us the answers, right? Give yourself a little grace. Again, do your absolute best not to harm anybody. Do your absolute best not to harm yourself. Give yourself some grace, because it is unreal. Again, I cannot overstate how incredibly unreal it is that we're all here together right now. What are the odds? However, overall, if you're listening to this still somehow, and you're like, well, what do you think? You know, I think not having an answer is the point. And I don't think that's a unique thought either. I think that's a pretty like baseline philosophy conclusion to draw. But I think the point of life is not having an answer and pursuing whatever that answer may be for you with the time that you have to the best of your ability. Becoming what you are to become, I think the point is that we don't know, and what a privilege it is to be able to feel the full range of human emotion and experience. What a privilege it is to have the human condition where you can think in these ways and experience life through this lens that you have. The privilege to experience life, that's a privilege in and of itself. Again, this is coming from a place where and things are most certainly not going incredibly smoothly, no problems on this side of the town. But you know, I have food, I have water, I have 2 cats that are very poorly behaved, I have a beautiful girlfriend who I love very much, who is very sweet, I have parents who love me, and a lot of that is also a place of privilege to be in. Just a few months ago, I had a much rougher relationship with my family. I didn't have any pets. I didn't have a girlfriend who I loved and fills my heart with so much joy. All I had was this job. I mean, not all I had, of course, because again, I wasn't wondering where my next meal was coming from. I have a roof over my head. I have clean water. You know, it's definitely not all. But to me, the way that I was showing up in the world was all I have is this shitty job that I hate. And in just choosing to stop viewing presence in my reality as something scary or something to avoid, or like just as a defense mechanism, something not to fully dive into, I was keeping myself in that place. And now that I have learned to value my time a little bit more, I believe that not knowing the answer is the point, and the best thing that you can do, and the reason that you're here on this earth, and why I'm here on this earth, and maybe the reason why you're watching this video or why I'm making it, maybe all of this is just so that we can try our best to be whatever we're supposed to be. So thanks for listening to this, whatever this was, but hey, what do I know? I don't know anything. You know, what does any of us know? I'm just yapping. I'm just talking to a camera. So thanks for joining me here. Happy to have you here, and I'm happy to be here, and we'll see where this thing goes. Again, my name's Kaya, and welcome to this. You done being banned? You're done being banned right when I'm done recording for 2 hours? Very cool, very nice, very nice, very nice, very nice, very nice.